And we're live. All right. What's up, buddy? How you been?
Been good, been good. Been looking forward to fights this week. How about yourself?
Yeah, I've been dibbling and dabbling in my basketball thing, and it's going okay tonight. I guess I should have played more Russell Westbrook than I thought I should have. I thought maybe he'd just say fuck it, but eh, guy's got more heart than maybe I gave him credit for. Um, we're gonna try to see if we can get these names right tonight. So, first fight I got on the list here for the counter move guys is going to be Freddie Serrano versus Dr. Bentley Seiler. He's actually a doctor, uh,
In medicine?
studying to be a doctor. Believe it or not, watching the weigh-ins, almost everybody in this card has like a college degree or was working towards a college degree or something crazy like that. So highly educated fighters, I guess this card.
Fucking A, good for them. Better than I am.
So I'm going. Usually on the counter moves, I defer to you on this one. If I'm looking for strictly, just looking at the play-ins from the way I kind of view it, uh, I'll go with the doctor. What the hell?
See, I'm leaning a little bit more opposite. Serrano, he's considered the best freestyle wrestler to come out of Colombia. He's been doing training over here. He's training down there. Bentley's the more overall well-rounded fighter, but Freddie is a beast. And if you've seen one of his finishes in his sanctioned and unsanctioned fights, the second the guy puts you on the ground, he's hammering away with leather. Only drawback to that type of explosive style is he tends to tire pretty quickly, which we saw happen on Tough Latin America. So I can honestly say that this fight's a little bit more of a pick 'em. If it ends in the first, I definitely have the advantage going to Freddie. If it goes the distance, I say Bentley has a little more of an advantage because of his conditioning, how they look at the weigh-ins.
Both guys look solid. Um, I always tend to feel as if the lower fighters seem as if they're more prepared when it comes to the weigh-ins. As your guys that are maybe higher up on the rank, they're doing a little bit more partying and stuff, and maybe they're comfortable with their cuts and thinking that they can make it where they can't. But no cut issues this time around, which was nice to see. Um,
Yeah, for a change.
we're not going to spend too much time on the lower one, so we'll go on to the next one. We've got Christos Giagos versus Jorge de Oliveira. Um, you know, kind of lesser named guys. From everything I've seen, could be a decision fight, but the earlier fights seem to be the ones that pack the most punch. Would you agree?
Recently, 2015, there's been a couple cards where the undercard has been the clear finishing potential for the entire card. Um, well, let me get into what I know. Christos Giagos, guys had some, what I can say is quality experience in terms of he headlined an RFA event in his last fight before getting into the UFC.
Okay.
As we've seen the RFA, we've seen some of them guys come out hard, come out swinging. They've been doing work over here. In that fight, he actually won, I believe, in the second round by flying knee, followed up by some punches. The guy's dynamic. Nothing shocking in terms of creativity, but just throws a lot of Hail Marys and crowd pleasers with good, solid boxing technique to back it up.
I'm always sucker for a flying knee. You know that.
I, I do.
I kind of. I'm going to go for the guy that has a flying knee finish. 9 times out of 10. Although I kind
Hey,
of wrote down people as it went of
the
who I
first fight,
thought that I liked.
the first fight of Baltimore for us, it ended in a flying knee, so we knew we were going to have a good night. But
Yeah.
his opponent Jorge de Oliveira, um, Another guy, well-rounded, only one loss. It was in his first fight in the UFC against Diego Lima. But here's my opinion on knowing what we know now. Diego Lima doesn't have a great chin on him. Granted, he's fought some power strikers, but his chin was exposed. Um, Oliveira was also going up in weight to take that fight, but Diego had the opportunity to stick and move and just not be in too much danger. When he took him down, he was very heavy on top of Oliveira. Oliveira looked like he knew how to move on the ground, but did not have an answer for Diego Lima. And Giagos has been a more well-rounded fighter. That's why I'm giving him the nod in this one. Both of these guys come to bang, come to throw. Again, you said the undercard's been paying off, and I think Giagos can pull off a finish in this one. I'm going to say around the second or third round.
My feeling from looking at the fighters and knowing, just a little bit of history that I know, it looks like it's a finish. Somebody. Would I be surprised if Jorge pulled it off? I mean, he's fighting at the proper weight. We got one fight of UFC experience for this guy. It's pretty decent competition. Cariosa is fighting Marfa. We have, I think, 3 or 4 Leonardos fighting in this fight. You could actually probably make
There's a Leandro in there, too. I think he's next.
Yeah, you have Leonardo and then Leandro, which is it seems like a very popular name for this fight. So you could take all L name fighters if you wanted to do something.
Well, that how freaking common Silva is a Brazilian last name. I've never heard Silva uttered so many damn times until I started watching the UFC.
Yeah,
crazy.
It is, man. It's like Smith for us.
It's their common white boy name down in Brazil.
Yeah. So, I mean, fight took place at 155. You're kind of looking at both guys. Again, I'm going to give you some funny background tidbits here. Cariosa actually has a sociology degree. So, again, that's a running theme for a lot of the guys here is that, again, like I said, we have a lot of college-educated fighters. How that pans out in the world of MMA, I really don't know. I would assume if you had a nice-sized brain and knew how to use it, you wouldn't want to get your head banged around. But
well played. Nick Denis was a genius when he was a genius, and that's actually the reason why he stopped fighting. He said he felt like he was going towards a path of head trauma, but that dude was a literal genius. First fight in the UFC, ends up messing somebody up with some elbows. I was high on him and found it very, very upset when he retired. But hey, got to give the dude his props for sticking with his health. But on the fight, okay, I'll say this like this. Teixeira has great striking offense. I like him in that aspect. He always finishes up punch combos with a kick. But the problem is he's tended to drop his hands and he leaves his jaw up. He's been tagged a couple times big, but for the most part, it's a worry thing in his fight, and it finally ended up catching him in the third round with Hermione Perpetuo, and he's got power, but he also leaves shots open. There's shots that definitely can be taken and will exploit it. A little wild. Not necessarily in his technique, but he's very aggressive. He's got that young shoot-a-box hunger, kind of like Vanderlei Silva used to have. It's funny, he's a shoot-a-box guy.
okay.
But I'll say this from a guy that's played him before's perspective. I've played this dick twice, and he's cost me both times. Rick Story fight, he was outmatched, outgunned to come back. I was hoping him on a punt. But in his first UFC fight against Perpetuo, everything was going, pretty much the way I thought it was. He was landing more shots. Perpetuo was landing in the clinch a little more, or in the pocket and the clinch, whereas Mafra was sticking to the outside, and it was working for him. Third round comes along. Mafra backs up, ends up getting caught and dropped and finished. So as a person that's played him before, I have a lot of buyer's remorse. It's
Okay.
just one of the things where no matter how good somebody is, they can always let you down in the end. And Carriosa's no joke. He splits all of his wins, his 6 wins, 2 knockout, 2 submission, 2 decision. Um, some of the tape I've seen of his earlier fights, uh, for being submitted as fast as he was by Chris Wade, which was just damn right impressive. And knowing what we know about Chris Wade is he's a quality fighter. He's a great fighter.
Right.
Carriosa's got some skills on the ground. I mean, one fight I watched was earlier on in his career, but he's throwing up submissions left and right, defending really well in the transition, keeping the submissions going from one submission to the other. So in no way, shape, or form am I going to say this guy's bad on the ground, especially when 33% of his victories come by submission. Again, his last fight before getting into the UFC, before his first loss, 30-second knockout. What I do like is he brings 4 inches of reach to the table. Mafra's usual main game is to stick to the outside, land those kicks, land those straight punches that he's good at, and minimize distance. But at a 4-inch reach disadvantage, it's going to be a little bit more of an uphill battle. That's why I chose Carriosa. I put that in my blog. But the one thing I can say is that I really think that with a shaky chin and a 4-inch reach advantage and a guy that's hopefully intelligent enough to come up with a decent strategy for this, realize his openings, I give Carriosa the nod. Sociology degree, hopefully it pays off in his fight IQ.
Right. Go. Well, if we're going with the guy with a degree in that fight, I'm kind of going against the guy with the degree. We got Drew Dober, who actually is working on has a business degree that he got from a community college. So really probably not that strong of a degree. Fighting Leandro Silva, who to me looked really good at the weigh-ins. I didn't get a chance to check out the reach. I'm sure you got those statistics there, so I'd really like to see those. But just from a pure eye perspective, he kind of looked like a guy that looked like he could do some damage.
Who, Mafra?
No. Moving on to the next fight. Talking about.
Oh, Leandro.
Yeah, Leandro.
Here's what I like and what I don't like about both fighters. Leandro, you can really tell what a guy's grassroots style is by looking at some of his earlier fights. And not saying Leandro is necessarily a bad striker. He's not a very high output guy from the pure stand-up side. When he gets a takedown, guys throwing haymakers straight down the pipe, very solid technique, and where most of his finishes come from. But that being said, his takedown ability is a bit shaky at this level of professional MMA competition, which is going to make his strategy a little more difficult to play, especially if this goes 3 rounds, not a high output guy. And Drew Dober is the complete opposite. Drew Dober is a Muay Thai fighter. He comes at you regardless if he's getting messed up. Watch his fight with Nick Hayne. Nick Hayne messed his ass up. Blood was everywhere, and Dober was still constantly coming forward. Got a little bit of a wonky situation in his last fight. Jamie Varner has got to be the Murphy's Law of MMA. I mean, the dude steps weird on his ankle one time and blows out his ankle. Can't fight. Next fight comes out. I don't know if it's the next fight, but this fight comes out with Drew Dober and I believe that was his retirement fight, or the one right before it, and goes to throw Dober, lands on his head. Dober ends up picking the submission. Funny enough, that royally screwed me because I had Varner, but funny enough, the same thing happened with Ben Saunders and Joe Riggs later that night, and I had Saunders, so kind of worked itself out on that one.
Yeah, it's funny how those things work out. Again, this looked like a decent fight on paper, one that I'll be interested in seeing, especially with it being, all these are all televised, which is nice. So, everybody kind of gets to watch the fights. I don't know if everybody's the big pay-per-view buffs like me and you are and actually watch every one, but, this will be interesting. I'm trying not to get distracted. I'm trying to do like three things at once here. There's actually a double overtime game going on at basketball right now between the Bucks and the Nets. Which
Genius is multitask, buddy.
so we got Kikuno versus Souza next. Um, I really didn't write much down here when they came out for the weigh-ins. Just didn't really seem like there was much there. Me and you kind of had a phone conversation while we were looking at this one, and we probably are going against the grain. It seems like.
My question is, do me a favor. When I spit my shit about these guys, can you spit me the Vegas odds on this fight, because I haven't looked for this card and I want to see if we're going against the grain. I personally,
While you're doing it, I will pull up the Vegas odds. So go ahead.
I love Souza in this fight. Like, the dude is a walking highlight reel. He's got knockouts, and when you check, like, when you watch tape on this guy, let me switch that. When I look at a guy, I look at the quality of his wins. I check his opponent. A lot of these dudes down in Brazil have opponents with sub 500 records, guys 1 and 2, stuff. A lot of situations like that. I'm not talking early in their career either. Like, pretty close to them getting signed by the UFC. This is happening in some cases. When I watch tape on Kevin, I don't care about his opponent quality, because the way he's moving, the things that he's doing, the way he's doing them, he knows what he's doing in there. This isn't some guy that's coming out throwing Hail Marys and just having a stronger jaw than the other guy, facing guys that aren't ready for competition. He's blasting kicks and punches in this. Kikuno's no joke. Kikuno, I think he has 22 wins in like 28 fights, or something like that. I think he only has 6 losses. But
I mean, Vegas seems to favor Souza.
okay. I'm kind of shocked by that.
It's minus 230 to plus 210. I'm looking at best fight odds right now. That's subject to change, but again, we're going to go, for people that haven't watched any of our blogs or don't know us personally, we have our hierarchy theory, and, when you told me we got an 8-inch reach advantage against an Asian, I kind of lean towards that fighter.
Absolutely. I've had an issue with some of the Asian fighters and their chin. Some of them have come over and have had great chins. Some of them are knockout artists in Japan and parts of Asia, and it's just the talent pool. There's very few strikers by style coming out of Asia, which is kind of how you develop everything, is by striking, being comfortable in the pocket and things like that. A lot of them are throwing Hail Marys and catching a guy. You're also talking about in Japan, you have a completely different rule set where soccer kicks are completely legal. I'm sorry. If I sprawl on a dude and stand up and kick him in the head, I don't think he's getting up either, regardless of who I am. I don't care if you're on the juice, if you're skinny as shit, buff as hell. I don't care. You're not getting up if I pound you in the head with 3 or 4 soccer kicks to the temple. It's just not happening. So that being said, with a grain of salt,
that's a good point.
I look at the Tony Ferguson fight. Granted, it was at 155, but again, that can work both ways. Kikuno didn't have to cut any weight where he might as for this fight. But Ferguson had a 10-inch reach advantage, which is pretty rare to see a guy with a 10-inch reach advantage in the UFC. But this one, Souza's got 8, and I see bad things happening for a guy that's been knocked out over here in America, hasn't been knocked out before really, and he comes back, gets a submission win against Sam Cecilia, and all respect due to Sam Cecilia, he's got power, but he is not a grappler. He's a ground and pound fighter. He's a stand-up fighter. We saw that in his last fight where he knocked out Akira Kurosani. So styles match up and make things, but Souza's the intelligent type of fighter that he likes to land a lot of stuff on the outside, and he has power doing it. He just doesn't pot shot you, and that's exactly what you got to do when you have an 8-inch reach advantage especially against a grappler. I mean, you got to understand, reach is one thing. Reach is one thing when you're a wrestler. It's there. It'll help you keep your opponent at bay, help you land a laser. But if you have the reach and you're a striker, that pays more to your advantage. If you're a grappler, you want to be in very close. You want to be in the clinch. You want to be very tight. So this is just an overall around bad matchup for Kakuno. I don't like it at all.
All right, and I tend to agree with you there from everything I've looked at. The next fight we got up is kind of an interesting one, as we got Areola versus Trinaldo. Kind of looking at it from my perspective, and kind of busy day to day with me, kind of getting back to the swing of everything. I didn't get a chance to read your blog on this fight, but I like Areola.
Ooh, see, you and me are two different directions.
Okay.
I'll give you you know this story because obviously we're friends. We play the games together.
Right.
First fight, I'm sitting there dissecting Areola's first fight for the card, and I said, "Oh God, this guy's garbage." And I literally quoted him before Ruin Potts was signed that he was the worst fighter the UFC picked up. Why the hell are you gonna pick him up? He's not even from a freaking an MMA country, Brazil. Holland, even, for shit's sake. Japan, no, he's from Mexico. And he doesn't even have the boxing heritage. I mean, he probably trains boxing now, but he has most of his wins by submission. I just said, oh, guy's garbage. Got completely outclassed, saw it coming. Then I went on to say that in my article literally shortly after beginning to write, and got to give the kid his credit. Knocked out Yves Edwards in the first round. Yeah, he actually submitted him with an armbar. I'm sorry. It was just a giant punch that set everything up.
Okay. I do remember that.
What I can say about this is tip the hat to you, kid. You impressed by gaining upping your game. Some guys fall flat when they get to the UFC. They don't evolve. They evolve too much. They deviate from what got them there, and it kind of ends up screwing them in the long run. But I'm impressed with him. But in this fight, Francisco Trinaldo, granted he only has 19 fights, but I consider him a vet. He's a little older at 34, and I believe Edwards was 36, or it might be 36 and 38. But either way, he's a little older of a fighter, whereas Areola is younger. But Trinaldo has incredible takedown defense, and obviously his game is the hands. I don't like. He tends to have a light output, in my opinion, but in a couple of his last fights, it's been spent defending takedowns. I kind of see him as like a Tim Means. We haven't had a finish in a while, but we know he's completely capable of it. I'm not saying completely sleep on Areola. This is a dominant wash, but I definitely see Trinaldo being able to finish this fight, but I give him the nod at bare minimum on this. How did they look in the weigh-ins? And what is Vegas thinking as well?
With Vegas on this fight, if we're looking at the odds, they're favoring Trinaldo. It's pretty close, though. It's -200 to +185.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's as close to a pick'em as you can get without actually being a pick'em. So, a lot of the fights Vegas has this time are close. I'm thinking Vegas has kind of learned their lesson. The only guy that they seem to be heavily favoring is Gilbert Burns. And, I could see where that fight's coming from when we get there. I mean, Burns is fighting Basiler on a pretty short notice and everything. So
Oliveira.
Yeah. Oliveira, I'm sorry. Yeah.
We're not fighting a man with a chick. That would be hilarious.
Yeah. We're not getting there yet.
We'll talk about that if that comes when Ronda mauls another.
Right, yeah. Well, if Ronda ends up finishing off Carrera in like 10 seconds, and maybe we have to go that route.
I know. Carrera makes it past the first round. She's my new unsung hero of the women's MMA division. But back on track. We'll talk about that afterward.
We got a great nickname coming up in the next fight. Touchy Feely, Andre Feely. Okay,
I love
versus
it.
Pepe. You know, I gotta say that this might be fight of the night, in my opinion.
If he had a beard, he would be like a stalker, but
You know, exactly. You know, I think, you know,
if he drove a van with no windows, we'd be a
let's be
little
honest.
worried about the nickname.
A touchy feely Uncle Creepy fight's probably the greatest nickname fight that I could think of. But
It sounds like a bad cartoon porno or something.
it sounds like a pedophile's van. Okay. Um, you know, I actually think that either of these guys could have a shot at this fight. This could be a pretty big slugfest, or you know, they could just try to feel each other around. I worry about that some of these Brazilian cards because it seems like that there's a first round feeling out period, almost like boxing, before they actually get into it.
Well, I can say this is Pepe, vet of the Ultimate Fighter Brazil, wild guy, basically all or nothing, good on the ground, but he's had a 3-3 run since signing with the UFC. His wins haven't really been over top guys, but he did get first round wins in his last two fights. Before that, he also, in his previous two fights before those, he got finished both times in the first round. Andre Feely. Andre Feely is a little bit more of a fan favorite, or to me anyway, because little quick backstory is Champ and I ended up going to UFC Baltimore because that's where we're from, Maryland. And
Yep.
Andre was on the card. He fought Max Holloway, and I've never been more excited about a dude getting submitted before. Not because it was brutal. The fight was just amazing, and I don't knock the guy for losing to Max Holloway. Max Holloway's a freaking tank all the way around. Andre Feely is young in his career, but trains with a great camp. Team alpha male, always comes to fight, well-rounded, more of a basic striker into a takedown and do ground to pound type things. But again, team alpha male, he's not going to be a sluggish guy. He's going to be well-rounded pretty much everywhere. Pepe, again, does have some flying knee knockout, which I know you love, and everything
Yeah.
else. But I just see Feely putting a lot of pressure and being too overall well-rounded at some things that I don't think Pepe is going to catch him with a flying knee, basically. I do see this fight going on the ground, but between his pressure and his overall well-rounded game, I think he's going to do damage, and Pepe's not going to be able to submit. That's basically where I see this is. Now, granted that Pepe has been finished in the first round in two of his three losses. Can Andre finish? Yeah. Will he? I don't know.
Okay.
What are the Vegas odds on this one?
I started off the segment of saying I think this one could be fight of the night. So you just out of curiosity, I checked the prop. If anybody wants to, it's plus 700. If you hit some money, I'll put my just send me an email. I'll give you my PayPal so you can give me my 10% cut. You know, I kind of agree with that. I mean, this is a fight that could end quickly, or it could go the distance. You know, I'm going to kind of lean towards Pepe, but you know, I can't say that I don't think Andre can pull this off either. Our next fight, and kind of we preluded into it earlier, is Oliveira versus Burns. Oliveira stepping in for Thompson as a replacement. And this should be Gilbert Burns all day. I don't really see how
All day.
he
Um,
shits the bed on this one.
the quickest thing is Burns trains with the Black Zillions. Great camp. 9-0, undefeated fighter, holds 8 finishes in those 9 wins. Again, one of them was against Giagos in the first round. 3 seconds left in the round, which is pretty spectacular. But again, guy's a 4-time World Jiu-Jitsu champion. I had a conversation with you where I said he has basic striking. He doesn't have high output striking, but what I will say is he if I told him told a fighter, hold your hands up. That's how you're not going to get knocked out. He listens to that direction very well. Has very good fundamentals, but nothing about his fundamentals to me screams experienced striker. But he does hold 3 knockout victories, and it's not like they're bullcrap. He threw a technical good punch, and even he was surprised that he knocked the one guy out I watched. But he threw a technical punch. It landed flush. Wasn't some bullshit where he closed his eyes and prayed that it landed. Oliveira, from what I can see on Oliveira is a tall, lanky fighter. He's very aggressive.
He's the Brazilian cowboy.
And the funny thing is he does fight a little bit like Cowboy. He's a little more aggressive. He likes to land from the outside, but when he comes in, he drops his hands. And when you're a guy with a longer reach and a taller fighter against a guy that's a little more of a counterpuncher because of his grappling ability, I see danger in close distances. And Oliveira is a little too aggressive, in my opinion, to be smart enough to stay away from those. He tends to drop his hands where he can get clipped in openings and stuff, and then if Burns gets too close to him, he's going to put him on his ass and rip his arm off. I mean, you got longer limbs. It's great for striking, but that's another 3 or 4 inches of arm I can grab and snap.
All right. We don't have the soundbite queued up, but we got the, well, let's be honest about this. At any of these chicks in the MMA, there's no titties. But we do have the ass and titties fight for the female card here.
I love it.
Neither one of these chicks have any titties. Although I will say again, whoever that blonde girl is that does the Brazilian with the hourglass body distracts the hell out of me when I'm trying to watch the weigh-ins. So we got Shayna Baszler going against Amanda Nunes, which actually I think stylistically this is a great fight. My feeling on this is that if Nunes wants to take Baszler to the ground, she's going to get tapped out. She may be better trying to, wear her down a little bit, try to go with some more striking output than maybe her typical fight, and then, try to go for takedowns in the later rounds when she's got her wore down. I'm gonna go with Shayna on this one.
Okay. I think Shayna is going to get destroyed. I think her and Burns are... No, I'm not going to say that. Okay, between Nunes and Souza, I think they're going to compete for the most brutal finish of the night.
Okay.
Shayna, in all her own right, is, in my opinion, a pioneer of women's MMA. She was my pick for the first female Ultimate Fighter to win. She holds records over some of the chicks that were in the UFC before the tough, but since then her fights in the UFC have been pretty lackluster. She absorbs almost 7 strikes a minute in between 2 fights. I mean, this isn't one fight that one big punch set up a TKO and there's some skewed metrics. I mean, this is between 2 fights. Beth Carrera messed her up.
Look, you acted like I didn't remember that fight. Okay? All right, and Booty's was my pick in that fight. I went against Baszler. It's just the thing that gets me is that, like you said, to a person that's maybe more or less a pioneer in women's MMA, kind of listening to some of the weigh-in stuff, where she's kind of just trying to find her love for fighting again. It's going to be one of 2 ways. It could, if it ends abruptly, like you're predicting, she probably doesn't fight anymore. I just don't see where she's at in her career as that being like where this goes.
My point in this is this is a woman that trains with Ronda Rousey, and nothing by association, but I will say this. Jessamyn Duke was in a similar situation. Only Jessamyn Duke wasn't really a pioneer. She was another contestant on the show, a little more green in MMA. But again, you say I'm going to go with my coach. She was my coach on the show. She's the women's bantamweight champion. Great things are going to happen. And Jessamyn Duke, for all her attributes and skill sets within that division, and you got to understand she's a very tall fighter with a good bit of range. Jessamyn's kind of fallen flat too. Shayna does have the CSW background and very experienced on the ground, but if Amanda Nunes takes her down, it's not going to be a straight shot. Oh, I'm getting punched in the face. I got to take this to the ground type of takedown. Amanda Nunes is going to come at her very aggressively, and because of how many strikes she absorbs, I think she's going to eat a lot of those shots, and they're all power shots. I mean, look at her fight with Kat Zingano. She almost finished Kat in that first round. I cannot say if I was the referee that I might not have stopped that, and that fight, would have had a completely different outcome. First round
Right.
TKO for Amanda Nunes means her and Kat Zingano are fighting different people on Kat's comeback. Again, the drawback that fight does show is that she can burn herself out and she can get dominated. Only in this fight, if she mounts the type of offense that she mounted against Kat, Shayna's not going to have anything left for the second and third rounds to do what Kat did.
Vegas seems to agree with you. I mean, they got Amanda Nunes as minus 420, which other than Eric Silva and Gilbert Burns, there's no bigger favorite on the fight. So, you tend to go with Vegas on this one. You know how I am on the chick cards. I seem to have some magic there. So I'm sticking with my Baszler pick. I've been, upset, if you want to call it that. I actually will be, I'm on the Amanda bandwagon. For the next fight, now this is one of the closest fights of the night, is Tony Martin versus Leandro Santos. Now, Tony Martin is taking this fight on short notice.
Who's taking the fight on short notice?
Tony Martin is.
Okay, Tony Martin is.
Yeah, he stepped in for Ben Saunders.
Ah, that's right. Okay.
Tony
Well,
Martin, his last fight was in October. Apparently, he was getting married after that. Then the holidays came up. He's apparently been training and been wanting to fight. And pretty much took this fight because he was looking for a fight. Santos, like I said, this fight's so close to call. You almost want to lean towards the guy that's just didn't take the fight on short notice. But we've seen it in the past where guys came out of nowhere, and they put up some good chalk points. So
very true. In this fight, Leonardo Santos, if nobody has been following MMA for a while, or maybe you don't know, if you Google a video or YouTube a video of GSP at Abu Dhabi and you see him get put in an armbar in about 6 seconds, that was Leonardo Santos. Fucking legit on the ground, complete animal, but trains with Novo and Yao, and I feel like has kind of put his jiu-jitsu skill set on the back burner. And not that that's a bad thing in the evolution of an MMA fighter's career, but if your forte is snapping arms and cashing checks over it, don't try to stand with people. You work your game in there, but don't abandon your other game. It seems like he has. And he also does sport, usually in his fights, he does sport a pretty good reach advantage. Tony Martin's no joke, though. Trains at ATT, is a purple belt on the ground. I'm not going to say he's, it's on Santos's level in any way, but he tends to have, what I would say is crisper stand-up technique, where Santos tends to get a little lazy, especially as the fight progresses. Norman Park stood with him, and they went back and forth. Santos did damage, Park did damage. That fight ended up in a I think a majority draw, which is very odd. But and it's not like Santos is. There's two types of atypical Brazilian grapplers that I see, and that's your Vitor Belfort body type. That here's another good example: Taquino, Husamar Palhares, very stocky, built guy. When he gets a hold of that, he's gonna rip it. Very muscular body type, and then you have the lankier guys tend to work their game a little more. Cerebral, a little more cerebral approach to it. But no, Santos is more of an opportunist, creates it. He doesn't force anything.
Right.
And that's unfortunately his whole fighting style is he's not very imposing. He doesn't come in. He's a good fighter around, all the way around, but I don't see him as a very imposing fighter, so to speak, and neither is Martin. I believe Martin is smart enough to know that he doesn't want to go to the ground with Santos, but if he gets there, he's not dead in the water. I personally think this fight's going to be boring.
A good subject that we haven't touched on, that's something that me and you have in conversation a lot, is if this fight was to go to a decision based on their backgrounds, you probably lean towards Santos because you're figuring the referees are going to maybe judge the fight more in his favor, not just because of hometown, maybe because stylistically it's more what they're used to seeing.
Very true.
With Tony Martin, again, usually if I got a guy coming in on short notice, I'm picking against him. But Tony looked great coming out. They both hit at 156. Didn't look like there was any major issues. So, with Vegas also being close on this fight, I probably was going to go. I'm the type of person that maybe wants to go against the grain. I'm thinking maybe Martin might be a low-owned guy. Does he give me a lot of points is what I worry about.
I would honestly say neither man is that stellar in terms of points.
It's a fight.
Martin had a finish last fight, but it was a submission. He's not going to get that in his fight. Personally, this is a pick'em fight, and the only reason I would pick Santos over Martins is the hometown advantage, for the sole fact that it's their hometown boy, because this is a fight that I don't see high output, which I see it going to a decision. I think this is going to be the boo fest of the night. My personal prediction, not going to say it's going to happen, but I think this is going to be the boo fest of the night.
All right, well, again, so it sounds like maybe it's a fight we talked about later. Now, again, on the short notice end of the stick, we got Josh Koscheck, who the last time we've seen him was foaming at the mouth. He's only had 8 days to actually train for this fight.
No, he didn't. He had 3 because of media week.
Right. I mean, it's very short training. Going against Eric Silva, who if he could finish Josh in the first round, I think Eric has a chance of being your highest scoring guy of the night, and he might actually be able to output Gilbert Burns. My worry with Eric Silva is if the fight carries over. If we're getting into the later rounds, he seems to have a gas tank issue.
All right, you grew up in a very common sense mentality. Let me say one statement, and you can answer the statement. If it's too good to be true, it usually is, correct?
Yeah.
That's what only worries me about this fight, is it has all the makings for Silva to win, but it seems like way too much of a give me. I just read an article where Josh Koscheck said that he was considering intentionally low blowing Jake Ellenberger. In our personal conversations, I told you I heard a story from his college wrestling coach that said, I've never had to rip anyone off of I've had to break up scuffles before, but I've never had to break up a fight in the locker room where 2 dudes were naked about to fist fighting each other. But I had to do that with Josh 3 times.
Very odd. Very odd.
I wrote my last article was a little bit more narrative than technical, in the sense that Josh is very comfortable right now. He owns 2 gyms. He said he's at a good place in his life. He's that guy that I don't know if he has a girlfriend, but he's not married. He's getting closer to 40, and the guy's got a whole lot of reason to not want to fight. I mean, shit, I'll give him this credit more than anything in the world. Is when he was an analyst on Fox for the first time, Homeboy said, if you don't block, this is what's going to happen to you, and pulled out his front teeth. I think he's missing his his four center teeth, two big ones and one on each side. Holy shit, that is hilarious and much respect to you. But let's not sleep on it. This guy's a Division I wrestler. He's
And
not a joke.
that's where my worry with Silva comes in, is because it seems like wrestlers have given him the most issues in any of his fights.
And let's put it this way: Josh has gotten his fights ended quickly, but someone very similar to him that took Eric Silva on was his old training partner John Fitch. And John Fitch got the shit kicked out of him in the first round and almost got submitted and ended up winning that fight because Eric Silva gassed out.
And that's where, and it's funny that you brought up that fight, because that's exactly where I was going with this, is that, yeah, I know Koscheck's style, and that stylistically it does not match up well for Eric Silva.
Oh, and everyone watching in the background, usually when I quote a fight and a fight pops into my head, it usually has some sort of play. If you read my articles on the last card, one of the fights I quoted Dan Hardy versus Carlos Condit on the double hooks, one guy falls situation. You know, funny enough, it didn't come up. The situation didn't come up in the fight I wrote about, but it actually happened twice in that card where two dudes, or I think it was one chick fight and one dude fight, where two hooks were thrown, tighter man landed, and it all happened from there. So, so just a little background. We tend to have good luck with these. Might not pertain to this fight, but it might come up.
There's some narrative in there. We just may not always be able to land it. And then we're going to go on to the main event. Which was Damian Maia.
Second boot fest.
Taking on Maia. I mean, I agree with you with this Laflare fight. I'm not overly excited about the main event.
Yeah, I get to watch Damian Maia try to hump a guy for 5 rounds instead of 3.
Yeah, that's where I'm at on it, is that I got to watch Damian Maia try to hump a guy.
And I'll put it to you this way. Laflare, I heard I don't know what type of college credentials he has in wrestling, but I remember faintly he was a college wrestler at some level, which usually if they note that means you were pretty damn good at it. But I just don't know what degree and what level, so I won't try and butcher it and disrespect him. But every time this dude fights a wrestler, he immediately shoots 10,000 times because he knows if they sprawl, they're going to punch him, so he keeps shooting. And since dropping down to welterweight, he's looked great. He hasn't gotten a submission. I think he got one submission last year, and before that, it's been a while. But we got 5 rounds. Damian Maia. Oh man, if Laflare doesn't knock him out, this is going to be a boring ass fight.
I agree, and I look at this as Dana White was just complaining about Johnny Hendricks' win over Matt Brown not being that impressive, that he just kind of laid on him, and
he went 5 rounds with Bobby Lawler. I'm sick and tired of everyone saying Matt Brown's not elite. Okay, his takedown defense sucks, but you would too against an NCAA or a college All-American.
You can't fault him there, and when he's on the ground, he was trying to do things.
And another thing was he was hitting Hendricks with shots that was Hendricks' head was boom, boom, knock him back. So in no way, shape, or form, everyone who wants to say Matt Brown's elite can not elite because he can kiss my ass. Is he top 10? Absolutely. Top 5? We're on the border of that right now. I'll say he's in between 5 and 7 for welterweight.
The one thing you can say about Matt Brown is that he's not going to give you a boring fight.
Oh God, he's a gamer. If he puts out a boring fight, it's because of the other guy.
Exactly. It's usually because of his opponent. I'm going to lean towards Maia in this one. Only reason being is that when I'm watching the weigh-ins, Laflare was kind of looking like he maybe had a tougher time on his cut.
Okay.
Maia took 2 different substances when he stepped off the scale. I'm not going to lie about that. I'm assuming one was like a protein type drink, and then something else. But when I'm looking at that, what I'm realizing is here's a guy that recognizes his conditioning as a factor, and that if you're drinking protein after cutting weight, you're trying to make sure that your body has the proper nutrients to recover. I admire guys like that. I look at guys that are drinking Vita Coco because, we both know that's you're more replenishing of liquid. These things matter.
Than the sugar that everything else has.
Right,
And for
exactly.
people that don't know, a little bit about my background is I'm a wrestler. I'm 26 years old. I've been wrestling since I was 14. I coach youth wrestling. Been practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for many years, boxing many years. All overall round game. And I'll tell you this from watching guys, have Pedialyte all the time. If you take a tablespoon or a teaspoon of salt and pour it in a Gatorade and shake one of the 20-ounce Gatorade, shake it up, you essentially have the same thing of Pedialyte. And what's every sports drink's knock? Too much sugar.
Right.
And if you're going to have sugar, you might as well have something the body can digest a lot better, and that's natural sugar. So the fighters that are paying attention to what they're putting in their bodies at any course, especially now, this is the most crucial. I've made the mistake of eating some Taco Bell after a weight cut, and life's not great after that. So I didn't seem to think that my body would be in overdrive mode and would want to burn through food a little faster than it normally did because it was starving for nutrients on a horrible weight cut situation.
Listen, if anybody learned anything on this podcast, I hope it is to not eat Taco Bell after the weight cut.
That's another good thing, and another good thing is don't try and attempt a 17-pound weight cut solely on water. Horrible idea, ladies and gentlemen. I've done it, and I've wanted to die in the process.
So there we go. I mean, that's where we're looking at, or where I'm looking at this fight going is that, like you said, Laflare's got to kind of finish it early. I think Maia just controls this fight. It's not going to be fun to watch. I may leave in the middle of it and come back. I mean, it's really one of those types of fights where I don't think I'm going to miss something. Be sweet to see Maia maybe pull out a submission. But, again, I'm with you.
The finishing potential on this fight is hard. And their combined last 8 fights were all wins for their respective guy. Laflare and Maia each have 4 of their last wins. Combined, they are all 8 decisions, I believe.
Yeah,
so it's I don't see it being finished. If we don't see a finish, we're either going to see Maia chase Laflare down because Laflare doesn't want to get taken down and he wants to stick to the outside and throw punches, or we're going to see Damian Maia hump a human body for 25 minutes with 1-minute breaks in between.
That's essentially it. I don't even. Again, not a fight I'm getting excited about. Wasn't excited when it was first announced either. So, this is one of those cards where I think that Dana. This is where I think you're going overkill with trying to do 45. That you have a lot of guys that could do good filler cards for you that would maybe not make some of your pay-per-view stuff, or could juice up a TV card, if you kind of lay them down.
If he wants to solve his problem, I completely agree with you. If he wants to solve his problem, he needs to do shorter cards. That way he has more fighters to spread out because, quite frankly, some of these cards that are projected, some of them are great. Some of them only have 1 or 2 great fights, whereas instead of watching UFC for 8 hours with 3 children, you have 1, so everyone knows. It might be a little better to have 6 or 7 fights within 3 or 4 hours, your typical length of your NFL game and overtime and stuff like that, instead of putting on 12 fight cards. I understand the people that do these stadiums, that are in these stadiums, they want more value out of their ticket money, but at the same time, if you're also doing more cards because fighters are fresher because you're not stacking the decks as much, A, you won't have as many injury problems in terms of filling a card, and B, you might actually get to travel places more. Save your more stacked, longer cards for pay-per-view fights in big-ass stadiums, man.
Well, the thing that worries me is you actually get good TV viewers and everything, and this is one that could turn viewership away because, again, I'm looking for a main event. Maybe I'm seeing two guys I don't really know. As you know, I'm talking as if I'm somebody that doesn't really follow the UFC heavily. And I'm saying, okay, these two guys are fighting in the main event. They ought to be decent to watch. And then I'm stuck with 5 rounds of, like you said, Damian Maia dry humping a human body. I could have watched the NCAA wrestling championships and probably got a better match today than I might have out of that. So that's where my feeling is. We
Yep.
actually got a lot of cards coming up in the next couple of weeks, so I think we're just going to be churning these things out. Any parting shots? I'm going to tell everybody before we head off, if you're going to make picks that you think have a chance at victory. I've seen a lot of guys here starting to go with this. I'm going to pick 2 fighters for 1 fight idea. Listen, if you want to donate money to the pool, go ahead. But there's a very, very slim chance that actually works out for you. What you would need is for a fighter to literally, a 3-round slugfest and then somebody just finish it at the last second. If not, it does you zero good. And, it's a waste of money. So, I mean, the major thing here is, we're trying to speak on the DFS aspects of trying to optimize your lineups. So take what we got, apply it with your own metrics. Check out JD's blog on fantasy team advice. If you want to read more in depth. And Champ-Payne, I'm out. Jay, any words of advice before we sound off?
No, guys, we realize everything's beta. We're still figuring the system out as ourselves. I've been writing for 4 months. If you're a KounterMove guy, you might be following me. If you're a DraftKings guy, I mean, obviously you're new in 2015, but we have some nice plans to try and expand everything. We're working on a website. We're working on getting a format down that makes everyone happy. We're covering all bases on the podcast, and we're also looking to do some a little bit more editorial stuff, not necessarily on the fantasy side. There's a lot of aspect that pertains to fantasy that necessarily doesn't directly involve fantasy. We have a huge steroid problem right now. I'm sorry, guess what? I took Ortega and Casey all day, and I get to keep them points. I don't care if they get popped the next day or not. But again, that plays a factor. We're talking about places with commissions and things. I've been watching fights since 2001, 2002. Again, a lot of experience. So sometimes I know how weight cuts go or how they're supposed to go. I know what can go wrong. Been training a while. I see things ins and outs of boxing technique and especially wrestling and grappling technique in general. But again, guys who go to high elevation changes the fight. So there's a lot of different insight that doesn't pertain directly to fantasy, but does pertain to fantasy. If you play fantasy baseball and football, you're checking the weather. Who thought you'd be checking the weather for fantasy sports? But happens. So we want to cover a whole lot more subjects, a whole lot broader array of stuff. So hopefully we can get this narrowed down. Shout me out some feedback on Facebook if you're in the KounterMove group. Shout me some love on Twitter, Trials of Shazam. Tell us what you want to see. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. And we really appreciate the feedback from everyone, especially the guys that are really hardcore into this.
All right. Well, for Shazam, I'm Champ. We're out.
Peace.